Hello guys, and welcome back to True North Trajectory Disc Golf. Today we're going to talk about the different kinds of disc plastic types and how it affects those discs. So the biggest thing with this is that understanding the discs and the plastic types that are in your bag will really help to build that arsenal of discs that will be the most effective for you. Clearly, the first most important thing to understand is the disc flight numbers and the flight characteristics of your disc. And if you haven't seen it yet, we do have a video that's currently posted that will talk about the different kinds of effects that those numbers will have. Those numbers, in a very brief sense, describe the speed, the glide, the turn, and the fade of the disc, which will sort of help understand what the flight will be like, and it will also determine whether it's a putter, mid-range driver, or distance driver. But the next most important thing for you to know is what the disc material is in order to really understand what sort of additional effects will be taken onto your disc. There are tons of different kinds of plastics.
Look at all those disc plastics.
But however, in this video, we're going to take a look for newer players or people who are just beginning to research into the subject, the most basic different types that you will see across most brand manufacturers, and how you'll be able to identify further ones from there. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to understand a lot of the similarities, the differences, and the primary disc types that you can identify in order for you to help build the best bag for you as you continue to grow and develop your game. So although there are many different kinds of plastic types, I will be going over what I think are 4 of the most primary disc types that you will run across no matter what brand company you affiliate with. And then we're also going to take a look at 2 specialized plastics or some things to consider as well. So the very first kind of plastic that we're going to take a look at is the economic baseline plastic. So essentially these ones straight out of the box will be very true to the flight numbers, but it will wear in a lot easier than other plastics you will see. These are also discs that are made with the cheapest material, so although it will break in a lot easier and you may need to replace it a little bit quicker, it will be the most affordable way for you to try different plastics as it is cheaper to produce. A lot of these plastics usually belong with the putters and mid-ranges in brands. However, certain brands will be using these kinds of plastics in all sorts of types, whether it's drivers or distance drivers, just to make sure that it's more affordable for more people. And finally, these little baseline plastics are a lot more susceptible to crack in colder weather if you have a high impact scenario, whether you're driving it into a tree or something. So I'd avoid using these cheaper plastics in the cold weather. So the second type of plastic that we are going to take a look at now is the translucent durability premium material discs. You will recognize these discs because they are a lot more translucent and they are going to be a lot more smooth and stiff to the feel. The really good thing about these discs is that they are going to be far more durable than all the other plastic types. However, the one caveat is that they are going to be a lot more overstable than a lot of the other plastics as well, especially if you refer back to the economic base grip kind of plastic. It's going to be so much more overstable. It'll start fading out a lot easier than you are used to. So keep that in mind if you find a disc that you really like and you want it to be more durable. This could be a lot more overstable than you're used to. Finally, one other consideration to have for this type of plastic is that it is going to be higher priced alongside other premium discs. And you will see that this aligns very closely with the next category we're going to talk about. So the third type of plastic we are now going to take a look at is the solid performance premium plastic. So unlike the one before, this one's not going to be translucent, it's going to be a solid color, and it's going to be still very stiff, but a lot more flexible than you would find with the translucent ones. More stable than the economic baseline plastic and more understable than the translucent durable discs. This one will be sort of that nice middle ground in between, where it will be a little bit more true to the numbers, not quite as overstable, and it won't be understable, and it will still have that premium quality and decent durability to the disc. This type of plastic is certainly one of my favorites to consider. However, just like the durable translucent discs, these discs are going to be premium priced, so they're going to be on the higher end. I recommend taking these discs in for molds that you really like and you really want to solidify a good performance longer term disc. Then one of these more performance solid premium plastics will be really good for you to consider when upgrading that mold. And then finally, for the fourth main category, I have the grippy / gummy plastic. So this is going to be most related to that solid performance disc, but it'll be a little bit more different in that it's more lenient for cold weather.
Cold never bothered me anyway.
So essentially, the material in this disc is going to be a lot more grippy, gummy, tacky, so it's not going to be as smooth, not as stiff, which will give it different flight properties from other discs that have those qualities. In colder weather, you're going to find that your disc will perform a lot more overstable than usual. So when the grippy gumminess flexibility of the disc will start to play in, it will be more understable than usual, which then balances out with that cold weather, keeping it as normal as possible. And also, since it is more flexible of a plastic, it will have a lot less potential to break when you have high impact moments in that cold weather, because it will be a lot less brittle than a lot of the other discs are. One thing to consider with these discs though is that if you get into hot weather, suddenly that flexibility mixed with the warm weather will make the disc a lot more flippy than you're normally used to. So expect a lot more understability when you bring those into the warmer weather days. Finally, in terms of cost, it is more of a premium cost than the economic base plastics. However, it will be a little bit more affordable typically than the translucent durable disc or the solid performance disc. There are two extra specialty notes I'd like to keep note of here, and one is that there's going to be signature discs. So these signature discs are basically going to represent certain pro players, so they'll mostly be the translucent durable disc or the solid performance disc for the premium plastics, but the main difference is that they will have a sponsorship of the player, so it'll have their name, a special graphic or whatever, which will increase the cost. The good thing to note about this increased cost though is that part of that proceeds will go towards the player to support their Pro Open Tour series. So you're paying a little bit more for the disc, but it will probably look a little bit more cooler, have some collector value, and it will support the pros that you really like. The second point I wanted to make was that there's a lot of lightweight plastics that are available from most manufacturers. These will be a premium material, but will often have little air bubbles shot into it in order to make the disc a lot lighter compared to just having solid plastic throughout. So that way, any new players or players with less arm speed can try discs that have higher speed levels and are more difficult to throw, but will still be able to get a lot more distance from them otherwise because of those lighter weights. Speaking of weights, now we're going to move on past these main categories into the weights of the disc. Essentially, you're going to find that most discs are going to weigh around 160 grams to 180 grams. The PDGA has a standard where you cannot exceed a maximum of 200 grams. And then there are also going to be a lot more beginner style discs or beginner packs that have discs that are around 140 grams up to 160 grams. To completely understand how your disc will fly, you will need to understand the weight of the disc. You will see that there are heavier discs and lighter discs and that they have completely different properties. For heavier discs, these are going to perform a lot better in the wind, specifically in headwinds. They will maintain their line a lot more without turning over so much that will never come back and match its flight numbers. Which also means that if there's no wind, that the heavier disc will tend to fade out a lot easier than lighter weight discs. Going a little bit back to those gummy discs, I mentioned that cold weather will make your disc perform a lot more overstable. So then when you get into the hot weather and your disc becomes more understable, those heavier discs will just help out that hot weather effect a little bit better and make it more normal flight. Finally, the heavier discs will tend to have a little bit more of a skip on the ground when you land. So taking all those into consideration, these heavier discs are going to be a little bit more for experienced players because they're going to be a little bit tougher to throw. However, they will make for a better consistency and a stronger finish to the fade the natural fate of the disc, whether it's to the left or right, depending on whether you throw right-handed or left-handed, but that's one thing to consider for the heavy discs. Next, we take a look at the lighter weight discs. So these are going to be a lot better for new players because it's going to be easier to reach maximum distances with it. However, they will perform worse in windy conditions, with the exception of tailwinds. Because if you can throw into a tailwind, that wind's going to come up from beneath and it's going to help maximize the glide on your disc. Going back to the cold weather factor, the cold weather will make your disc more overstable. So if you have a lighter weight disc, it's going to be more understable, hence balancing out that effect. So hot weather, you use your more heavy discs, and colder weather, use a little bit more of your lighter discs. And finally, with your lighter discs, it's going to tend to finish a lot softer. So if you're trying to pick out that basket and you don't want to skip too far away, a lighter disc will most likely do you good. So the following table here is just a very brief example of how these different types of plastics apply to major manufacturers. So I pulled up 3 of them here with Innova, Discraft, and Discmania, some very popular ones, and just to give you a brief overview of how you can find these different plastics through these organizations. However, these differ very much between other organizations, and these don't even cover all the plastics that they have, but just to give you a general idea of how it looks. Based on all the information that you've gotten from this video so far, there's a couple key takeaways that I want you to understand. One is that these are just simple little heuristics that you can use to identify which disc may best suit you. Each brand has different discs and different production methods, so although many discs might be very similar, they are not going to be the exact same. So it is important that you do go out and try different ones, research everything into your own time, and look at more of the specialty kind of plastics that they produce. Do everything if you're really concerned on what disc you want to invest in, because that's going to be the best way for you to know. Another thing I like to do is I suggest that new players take a look into Innova and Discraft. This is mostly because they have a larger selection of molds, and these are different disc types, and you have a lot more accessibility in terms of finding them at your local store or finding them on your online dealers. Tacking on to that, I also believe that there's a lot more stable and understable options at Innova and Discraft than you'll find at many others. Finally, I find a very important thing to do, especially if you want to try to figure out your bag, is to get that economic base plastic of whatever mold you're looking at, whether it's a driver, mid-range, putter, blah blah blah, and throw that a little bit and see how you like it, because out of the box it's going to fly pretty true to the numbers and it's going to be a very affordable way for you to do so. Once you find a mold that you really like, then you can invest in something like the solid performance premium disc or the translucent durability premium disc. These ones will last you so much longer, and it will be a mold that you know that you like. The one thing you have to consider though is that these are going to fly a lot more overstable compared to the economic plastic counterparts. To help you guys out a little bit, I will put some of the important charts from different brand manufacturers in the description below, so check those out if you want to get more of a clear idea from the manufacturers themselves on what type of plastics they have to offer. So the great news is that there are a lot of plastic types you can look into, and there's going to be an ever increasing amount of them. So keep researching, keep on track of it all, and you'll see a whole bunch of different options that you have, from more styled discs to more overstable discs, understable discs, affordable, more expensive, long-term. Whatever it is, there's some sort of disc out there for you. It just takes a little bit of research. I like to look on Reddit as well. There's lots of feedback from people who use different types of plastics from different brands in there, but there are unlimited resources for you to find everything online. I truly hope you got value out of this video and understanding what kind of plastics you're dealing with when you're looking at building your bags. And I thank you for tuning in, and I hope to catch you next time at True North Trajectory Disc Golf.